Hi everyone, it's Margaret Manning here, and welcome to Mornings with 60 and Me. Today is Sunday, September 18th. So I have got my cup of tea this morning, and believe it or not, there's a tea that I've never tried before. So I'm trying this morning rooibos tea. Now, it comes from South Africa. It's only grown in one part of the country on the Cape of Good Hope, and it's apparently a really healthy tea. I did some research and it showed it was meant to help with everything from eczema to hypertension, helps with diabetes, all kinds of claims for this magic tea. It's quite smoky in taste and it's very dark browny red color. Perhaps one of you have had it before and you can tell me whether you love it or not, but it's a really unusual tea and apparently has 50 times more antioxidants than green tea, which is one of my favorites. So some people mix it with green tea. So rooibos and green tea. So that's my tea for today. Hope you've got a coffee or tea ready, and let's sit down, get up to speed on the news, and then share some stories at the end that hopefully will get you motivated on a Sunday to just have a great weekend. So, in the United States, there is some news that is just breaking, and I'm sure by the time you watch this, there'll be a lot more developments. So, I'll just give you the data, what I know right now, and that is that there has been an explosion in New York City in the area called Chelsea, 23rd, and I think it's 6th Avenue. Now, when I lived in New York, I actually lived very close to this area, so I know it's very busy. It's just a working area. You know, it's not a particularly tourist area, but it's a part of New York where a lot of people would be out on a Saturday night. So there was an explosion in a dumpster. And 29 people have been hurt. It appears that none have been hurt, with life-threatening injuries, but it's, of course, very worrying, and there's lots of activity in New York City right now trying to figure out what happened. It appears that there was an explosion in a dumpster, and not sure whether it was, an accident or an intentional device, but that's where it seems to be heading. The mayor, Bill de Blasio, says that it probably was intentional, but not sure whether it's related to terrorism in any way. So New York City is under alert right now. I just saw a quick flash on the news that said a secondary device has been found in a second location. So this is worrying news, but hopefully by the time you watch this, it'll be a lot clearer as to what's happened. Hopefully everyone is safe, and the police, I guess, are doing a great job to keep everything under control. But, the New York City is a big city, lots of people, 29 hurt. So keep our fingers crossed that it doesn't develop any further. In the United States as well, next week, there's going to be a big gathering at the United Nations, and President Obama is going to be meeting with presidents of Iraq, Nigeria, Colombia. A lot of activity going on in the world right now with government changes, and it's an opportunity for him to meet with them and, really try to understand how everyone can work together for a safer world. Of course, in Nigeria, we have the Boko Haram situation that is causing a lot of difficulty, and in Colombia, the FARC rebels have just signed a peace agreement with the government after 50 years of battling. So those are things that will be on the mind of government leaders next week. It's unlikely, it is told, that President Obama will meet with President Duterte from the Philippines. So it's good to know these people are speaking to each other. It's a very global world we live in now, and so good to share insights and support. So back to Colombia for a second. The FARC rebels are actually holding this week a peace conference. First time they've held a peace conference really in 50 years. They've been battling the Colombian government for that long, and it's taken them 4 years now to come to a truce. And they are meeting this week to really discuss how to integrate back into society as a viable political party. It's very similar to what happened with the IRA in Northern Ireland years ago. They were fighting the government for years, then became, there was a truce signed, and then they became a very valid government U.S. party in England. So that's going on in the world. It's kind of a little bit chaotic this morning. But in the EU, of course, they're finishing up their conversation. about what's going to happen in Europe post UK leaving with the Brexit agreement. They're ready to start this process right away, but the UK wants to wait a little bit longer to get their act together before they press the button that starts the timeline of 2 years to sort out a new UK. So that's happening in Europe. In Germany, there's been yesterday and overnight protests from the anti-globalization team, a group who doesn't want a trade agreement to be signed with the United States. There's a lot of difficulty right now about sustaining economic stability in every individual country. A lot of people have a vested interest in keeping their own interests at heart, but at the same time, thinking globally, as we mentioned earlier. Finally, in Egypt, there has been some sort of press down on people who have spoken out against the Egyptian government. Their assets have been frozen. This includes 5 individual or human rights activist organizations, and also 3 non-governmental NGOs. So these groups are being penalized. Their assets have been frozen in a way, really, to keep control of them and to establish the order that the Egyptian government is looking for. There is actually one final note I'll mention, which is very sad, and that's a Paralympic cyclist in Rio died yesterday in an accident. It was a cycling event, and he was involved in a very serious accident, and he died. He was from Iran, and his name was Bahman Golberzahad. And so, of course, our deepest sympathies to his families. How awful that must be for him to have come all this way and then to have been killed in this accident. So that's the news from the world. A little bit crazy world this morning, but here's a feel-good story for you to renew your faith in humanity. This is a great little story. A woman went to the Glastonbury Festival 3 months ago. This is in the UK. And I'm sure you all know about the Glastonbury Festival. It's a bit like a modern Woodstock, crazy times, lots of activity, music, dancing, play. And this woman went to Glastonbury and lost her wallet. She said she got a little preoccupied and lost her wallet. And so 3 months later, what should she get in the mail? But her wallet. It came back to her. And she said it was exactly as she had left it, with 3 very crisp 20-pound notes that she just got out of the cash machine. So it was exactly as she had lost it. And of course, no one knows who sent it back. And she says that she wants to pay this back, of course, and is very grateful for the person returning her wallet. And just made her feel, she said, like the world is chaotic and crazy sometimes, but there are good people, and that kindness often is the rule of the day. So she got her wallet back, and it made me think too. Is that actually interesting? I don't know if you thought it, but what took this person 3 months to send it back? Now, it's great they sent it back, but I just think that sometimes these situations can be a lesson for both sides. I mean, for the woman who lost it, of course, dealing with that situation, but also the person that found it. And of course, always the question, what would you do if you had found someone's wallet? Would you have to think about it, or sending it back, or would you have just immediately returned it? Just an interesting story on lots of fronts. So I think that kind of leads me to the last article of the day, which is about making decisions and making tough decisions. How would you have dealt with that situation, for example? Would you have returned it? But this is an article by a woman called Beth Burgess, and I think it's quite a good article because it talks about the fact that we all have to make tough, hard choices in our lives. And sometimes we don't have confidence in our decision. We don't think we have all the facts, or we're just afraid. We're afraid to make a decision that could hurt us in the long run, or perhaps it's a decision that might hurt someone else. So this, she talks about, when faced with a very tough, hard decision, here are 7 things that you should think about. And I think most of these are pretty accurate. So let's go through them. Maybe it will help you if you've got a tough choice that you're trying to make right at the moment. So her first thing is to ask what you think would happen if you didn't make this decision. I think it's all very easy to sort of judge what would happen. If I do this, then this will happen. But what would happen if you don't make the decision? And I think that's a really good one, is that, to look at from the other side. Look at the opportunity that you might have missed, even if it's a fearful decision. Look at the people that you might meet or that you might engage with, or just what might happen if you did not accept that, make that decision. I think it's kind of an interesting angle. The second thing is to ask yourself what you're afraid of. If you get to the heart of it, when you're making a tough decision, there's usually a fear, a fear of a new way of life, a new relationship, a new job. What is it that you're afraid of? And I think looking at that fear of failure, that fear of embarrassment, all those hidden fears, sometimes makes a decision easier to make. Another one, which I think is super important, and it's a bit abstract, but it's to ask yourself, what does your heart say? Sometimes if we listen to the inner person, a decision gets easier to make. So Beth's suggestion is just to listen to your heart. What does it say? What's your gut feeling? And sometimes that's the best way to make a decision. The fourth thing that she suggests is to ask yourself, what are you really doing this for? And I think that's, what is the decision really, what's the motivation behind that decision? Is it because what are your end goals? Now, if you make a decision to do something in the short term that has a long-term, questionable outcome, then is that the right decision? So I think as we get older, sometimes, do you want to make a decision now that's going to impact, your life 20 years from now? So I think it's just looking at the end goal is her next suggestion. Then it's who am I really doing this for? Now, I know as a younger person, as a mother, you often make decisions for your children. You make decisions for your husband and friends. But now in your 60s, when you're making a decision or a hard choice, who is it for? Who are you making this choice for? And I think when you kind of consider others, but don't put them at the front of your decision-making process, that's a wise choice to make. And the other thing that she suggests, which I think is really important, is how will you feel about yourself after making this choice or making this decision? You may have to make a choice that hurts someone or that hurts someone's feelings, or, is there a different way to approach this decision that will make you feel better afterwards? I mean, if it's going to make you feel really bad and really guilty, go back to those other questions and ask yourself whether it's worth making that choice. I know, as I said, you've got to make it for yourself. It can't be for someone else, but just think about how you'll feel afterwards. And then the final point is to think about what the fallout might be from your decision and whether you're ready or able or willing to accept it. Is it a choice that, making a different choice could have a similar outcome, but not have the fallout, not have the impact that the choice you're facing might make? I think those are really good suggestions. And I know that as we get older, choices become a little bit more weighted. We think that we've got to make choices that are just a little bit more significant as we're older. So I think it's important to think about it. What do you think? I found a little quote here, which kind of, I know we all face these things and worry about making choices, but this quote by Jacqueline McInnes Wood says, we're all human beings. We all have insecurities, but it's about being healthy and happy with yourself that really matters. So I think that for me is kind of the bottom line when making any choices. If you've considered all these options, all these considerations, but is it going to make you feel good and healthy and happy in your life? Those are maybe the guiding lights. So I hope that's all been helpful this morning, and maybe you've got something on your mind that you'd like to share with the community. Just leave it in the section below. We love to talk. I'm loving the conversations, by the way. Thank you all for being here. I'd love you to go up to 60andme.com/mornings. Just sign up so we can meet every day like this, and tell a friend. Tell a friend about Mornings with 60 and Me. I think that this is a great way to just have a cup of tea, relax, get up to speed on the news, but also just get a sense of community and a sense of friendship together here. So please, give me your support. I really do appreciate it. And I'd like to ask you a question that relates to the story about making hard choices, taking tough decisions. And I just would like to ask you, what do you think are some of the tough decisions that a woman in her 60s has to make? Just think about it. What do you think are some of the tough decisions that a woman in her 60s has to make? I look forward to reading your comments below. I hope you have a fantastic Sunday. Have a really wonderful day. And I'll see you all back here tomorrow for Mornings with 60 and Me. Take care, everyone.